If you're going to fish chalk streams, you're going to need some small dry flies. You can't fish without them. Now, you may want your own favourite patterns. You may like the old quill slipwing flies of yesteryear. But quite frankly, if you use modern flies, you will save a lot of time and a lot of frustration. The old Starling slipwing flies, they look beautiful. But as we all know, after 2 or 3 fish and half an hour of casting, that perfect slipwing that you put on is completely destroyed. So why don't you tie some modern dry flies? And one of my all-time favourites is the Paradun. It's got a simple tuft wing of poly yarn. It's got a parachute hackle, a dub body, tails of either microfibits or cork hackle fibres, and it's a fairly simple fly. In fact, I find it a very simple fly. It sits right every cast. It never ever fails to sit correctly. It's almost indestructible. Fish can chomp it, you wash it out in the stream, 2 or 3 good cheeks full of air, and you're back in business. One oiling probably gets you, I don't know, half a dozen fish before you have to retreat it. So that's the fly I'm going to tie today for you. Certainly all the flies you're going to find on the chalk streams, large dark olives, medium olives, pale wateries, blue-winged olives, the spur wings, all those can be covered by this one simple pattern. All you do is change the hook size, the body colour and the wing colour. It is a universal fly. Okay then, we'll make a start. I'm going to use a size 18 hook. These are Partridge 4X fine dry fly hooks, size 18, E1As. Right, hook in the vise. Grip it right by the heel of the hook, just enough to expose the barb. Otherwise you're going to mask the point and you're not going to give yourself much manoeuvring room. Nip off the barb. I'm tying with spider web because when you come to finish the hackle off, I'm going to finish off underneath the hackle, doing my whip finish underneath the hackle, exactly in the same manner that Hans van Klinken does with his klink hammers. And if you don't use spider web on these small flies, the hackle, instead of it being flat like that, it will tulip slightly, it will give you that. An 8/0 or a 10/0 is still too thick. You want to be a very fine thread to get this flat profile. Spiderweb thread, on with your thread, and just make a single pass with your thread down to the end of the shank. Tweak off the waist. For tails I'm using these lovely tapered nylon microfibits, pale olive microfibits, so just peel 3 out from the side. There's my 3. Don't tweak them off. The best thing to do is to just hold them up. Try to keep the tips reasonably lined. If you take them off and pull them straight, you will find that the tips should be nicely in line. There's the area where they're all glued down there. So just take your scissors and at that point snip them off. If you try pulling them off, you'll get kinks in the nylon fibre. Sit these in, just rest them on top. Don't worry about the tail length at this stage, any length. Hold now by the tips and lash the butts in. If they rotate round like that, just pull them back and sit them on top. And just come once up the body, tying them in. If they rotate, pull the butts to the top. I just want to make sure these are well tied in. The tail wants to be about the full shank length from there to there, and that's how much you want your tails to overhang. So I can see that I need to pull that back about 3/16 of an inch. Just get hold of the butts and just pull them for length. And they're about right. Now tie down, tie down, tie down. Come along. You can get rid of the butt end now, snip that off. Hold the tips in your non-winding hand and I tie down right to the end of the shank, just in fact dipping round that first part of the bend. You can even pinch that first little dip of the bend if you want. Come with your thumbnail underneath and I dig in there and I push in hard there, and that splays the tails. So pull the near fibre towards you, the far fibre away from you, and leave the centre fibre where it is in the centre. And now you simply come through with your thread. You're going to drop the thread between each fork of the tails. That will keep them permanently in place. So go between the far one and the middle one, and then round again and between the middle one and the near one. Once you've got them like that and you're happy, don't go trying any more turns, because as sure as tomorrow you're going to upset that nice position. You've got beautifully forked tails, and the two outer ones will be really perfect outriggers. Keep the fly nice and flat. Make sure that they're on this flat plane. Move your tying thread forward now and let the thread hang at about the 1/3, 2/3 position. Just drop that back a touch so the thread is there. So you've about 1/3, 2/3. And in that position, I'm going to tie in the wing. For wings, I like this stuff. I like this siliconized polypropylene yarn. So take off a clump. The hank volume is just about right for a size 18 and a size 16. Just get your yarn, inch and a quarter long. Any stray filaments, just stroke them out. Bring it behind the thread, just lift it up the full clump, and you can see under the weight of the bobbin it will just sit down. So hold it up, sit it dead central, and come round with another 1, 2, 3, 4 thread wraps. Check that the wing is central. It's got to be sat smack dab on top of the shank, and then tighten down with 2 or 3 more wraps. Now take your scissors, holding the tag end quite low, make a long sloping cut of the waist. Mind you don't take the tails. Now come round and with bundling wraps, just bundle those fibres down. Then you can go back down and crush them, crush them, crush them. There's that nice taper look that you're after. Keep it off the tail end. And now you're going to put the hackle on. For this hackle, for this particular fly, I'm tying this to copy a pale watery, small pale watery. You go for a genetic, nice, good quality, stiff, steely genetic. I've got a hackle here that's it's sort of a sandy dun colour. A pale blue dun would be fine. So now I want to look for the correct hackle. And this is where you've got to be a little bit critical with yourself and hold your patience. Don't be in a hurry to grab the first hackle that you see. Do a bit of checking here, because these genetics are a bit too precious to waste. I just rotate the hackle, turn the hackle until I can see the individual barb lengths, and I'm looking for something that's about 3/4 the length of that body. So I'm looking for hackle barbs about that length. So make sure you've got the right one. Tweak it out. You don't want it to be too small in the barb length. Remember, with a parachute style fly, it can be a little bit larger in hackle span. I have stacks of hackle here, so what I can do, I can afford to waste, to strip off. Get rid of all this soft stuff here. I want to get up where the stem is thin. I know it's a bit wasteful, hurts me to be wasteful, but there we are. Needs must when the devil drives, as they say. And snip that off. Remember, it's a parachute, so lay it flat. Snug up at the back of the wing. Circle round a couple of times and make a firm connection. Now lift your wing up, all the fibres, hold them back like that. Now I come to the front and I collect that hackle stem and I let it turn like that in front. and a lock down, so that the hackle stem has done a U. It's done a complete U round the wing. And while it's there, with your wing held back, scarf it down really tight, 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 tight. And now bead up, as you're tightening that in, bead up hard in front of the wing post, there, to sit the wing up vertical. In fact, you'll have a slight bias backwards, which you should have, about sort of 5 degrees slope backwards. And now, just run the thread along, tethering down that stem up to the eye. And at that point, trim off the hackle stalk. That hackle's caught down twice behind the wing post and umpteen times in front of it. And in the process of tying it down in front of it, I've posted the wing up. There's your hackle, nice and firm. Dubbing now. I'm going to use some of this MC5. This is the Masterclass River and Stream range. Pale, wishy-washy, silvery, watery olive colour. Just take, you only want to be talking about tiny amounts now. Remember with this dubbing, it's a little bit spiky, so don't put too much at once on. The trick is with this dubbing, little and often. So just make a short row lag of dubbing, thinner at this end, so you get a tapering spindle. And now wind that on, starting right at the back of the eye. Just keep giving it a tightening. Hold any wing fibres out of the way and wind that on right up to the front of the wing, making a neat thoracic area to the fly. Spin on a tad more dubbing, scarf it in very, very tightly, and now come straight over behind the wing and the hackle. There's your hackle ready to parachute on. And now just come round and dub out now the rest of the body, going down towards the base of the tails. If you find it's low in any place, I could just do to build up a bit more there. Just back off. There's no rule that says you can't go back and cure your faults. And don't be in a hurry to complete it unless you yourself are happy. You're in control of this now. Just go down, go down, go down. Should taper continuously. When you get to the tails, you can see this excess amount. Just slough that off. Because I'm a Yorkshireman, I'm going to save that. And this short staple dubbing is perfect for this. And now what I do, I circle round and come back up the dubbed abdomen in open wraps, giving it a reinforcing ribbed effect. The spiderweb pulls deeply into the dubbings, well away from trout's teeth, right up to the back of the wing, and I park the thread there. Just got to hackle it now. Hackle's in a nice flat plane. Thread parked behind the wing where you need it. Hook on my hackle pliers. Don't hook on the tip. Come up a little bit where it's a bit stronger. What they like to do in America, a lot of tyers, is with the tying thread, they like to come round the post of the yarn and make a winding post, make like a 2mm, or depending on the size of the fly, a 1mm winding post, binding in the polyyarn fibres tightly. On a fly this small, I don't think it's necessary. What then they do is they wind up the post and down the post. My method, I think, is simpler and it works very well. I make my first wrap tight up to the top of the body. Now it's important with this first wrap of hackle to keep it low, almost, well, virtually touching the top surface of the dubbed body. So circle round, passing from one hand to the other, just to support that wing post. There's my first turn completed. Now, each succeeding turn goes underneath the previous one. And then I pull just gently. And what I do is I jam the second wrap underneath the first wrap. and these jam in and sort of lock. And there's my third rotation. Don't go using all the hackle up. There's no need to cram a fly so small with loads and loads of hackle. Remember, in a parachute style, the hackle, the fly isn't sitting on its hackle points like a conventionally collar wound fly. It's sitting on the flat of the hackle barb. So it's got loads of support. Even 2 turns, even 1 turn is more support than a fly with conventionally wound hackle. Now I just let the tip hang low like that. Get hold of my thread. I'm going to tie down now by circling round again, taking my thread underneath the hackle but over the abdomen. And I come round with the thread, trapping the hackle tip to the wing post. I come round with 1 or 2 wraps maximum, and then I turn my vise now on its, so the fly is on its side. Now it's at right angles to me, and it's in the same attitude as would be a conventionally wound hackle. I want you to look at this position. The thread is there underneath that radiating hackle, but it's over the body. It's in that little slot there. There is my hackle tip with a few fibres that have been pushed down. They'll be trimmed off. So let that drape down, just like that hang. I run off a small amount of thread, circle round, again going underneath those radiating hackles, and there's your first whip finish. Round again, steer it under there, that's my second pass. Round again, and there is number 3. And that's enough. Close round with that finger and my thumb, slip out my 2 fingers that are holding the loop, pull through, that's my whip finish done. Pull tight, flex the hook wire, take my blade, go from the underside, snip off. There's the waist tip. Snip that off. A tiny amount of head cement. You must seal these with head cement. Parachute hackles, I find, if you're not careful, if you don't do this, if you don't seal them with head cement, they will slip out. Get some very, very thin head cement. I like this non-toxic, very watery, fly tight. And just tiny droplet on your dubbing needle point, and just sit the droplet there underneath the hackle, and it just soaks into that dubbing, into the thread wraps, and that's a secure job. All I've got to do now, hold my wing up, hold the wing fibres all together, just measure off the wing length, about 1 body length. Trim it long to start with. Remember, if you trim it short, there's no such thing as a putting on tool. And snip. And that's your fly done. That's your parachute done. Pale watery, size 18. You can go down, you can tie it down to a 20. If you look there, a nice full flared radiating hackle. Also look at the nice splay of the microfibit tails. Anoint the fibres and the underside of the body and the tails with a bit of dilly wax. Onto my leader and into a fish.